Okay, appreciate 8 o'clock. Let us get started. So, today our agenda is pretty straightforward. Like about the first hour and 15 minutes, we're going to finish up with chapter 4. Then we'll do the quiz for that chapter, and followed by basically going over adjustable rate mortgages. Won't need as much time for that quiz, believe it or not. So we'll only set aside about 30 minutes for that quiz, and then after that, we're done. Okay? Pretty straightforward. All right, so with chapter 4, fixed rate mortgages, we've gone over a fair amount of this material, so I'll review to the extent that we sort of need to. First of all, everybody's familiar with how to calculate straightforward, just constant payment mortgage, yes? Okay, so in essence, I'll do a very quick example. So for a constant payment mortgage, this would be nothing more than saying, all right, you've got a $100,000 loan amount as your present value. This is going to be 12 payments per year. We've got an interest rate of 7%. You've got a term of 15 years. In essence, what is my monthly payment? Okay, so do that. Monthly payment would be $898.83. Okay, all right. So that's just a very simple example of the first constant payment mortgage. Now, one of the things that we also went over last week is how to use the amortization function, or maybe even done with the first week, but we've talked about how to use the amortization function on the calculator to be able to extract any particular piece of information that we might be looking for. So as an example, for this particular problem, what if I were to ask you how much principal or how much interest that you paid during any particular period of time, or what was the ending balance for any particular point in time? So you give me a range of months.
12 to 24.
Well, I wouldn't use 12 to 24. 13. I would use 13 to 24 for year 2.
Year 2, correct.
Okay. So if we wanted to find out information for year 2, it would be months 13, 24, shift, amortize, and then equal. It's going to give us our principal, interest, and balance. Let's just do that real quick. Okay, so our principal during that period was $41,92.44. Our interest during that period was $6,593.50, and our balance at the end of that period was $91,897.76. So once again, principal, interest, balance. Okay, so am I comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in that particular instance, that was a period of time from month 13 to month 24. We can also just have it work for one singular month or period. So pick a month, any month. 70, okay? So if we wanted it for month 70, we would just continue on. We don't have to reset anything. We just do 70, input, 70, shift, amortize, equal. All right? So for that 1 month, $471.29 would be principal. $427.54 would be interest. And the balance at the end of that month is going to be $72,821.02. Okay? Everybody comfortable with that? All right? So that gets us, obviously, our first two. Now the third one is something we have not talked about yet. Something called a mortgage constant. Yep.
I just have a question. Like, when we're doing examples and we're trying to determine if we're going to do it like that way, like 13, we put 24 or 70, How would you word it? Like,
I would just simply say, what is the principal that was paid during month 70?
okay,
And then you would just simply give me 471.29.
okay,
Or I might say, give me the balance at the end of month 70.
okay. And how would you say it for something like
Give
that?
me the interest paid during year 2.
Okay.
In the first one, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out, I feel like that's where I'm gonna struggle with
Yeah.
determining which way to give it.
Well, no, I mean, all you gotta think about is it's either gonna be a point in time, like 1 month or 1 period, or it's gonna be a period of time.
Okay,
There's only 2 ways it can really be asked,
okay.
okay? All right. Mortgage constants. It's kind of a blast from the past in the sense that we don't really see these used that often anymore. But this was a big deal. You know, I'm 49 years old, almost, about to turn 50, and whenever I was in undergrad, we still had in most of our finance books and in the real estate books, we had these tables at the end of the book that basically were present value tables, future value tables, mortgage constant tables, and so forth, so on. And then you would have a 4-function calculator at best that you pretty much would put in the information and then solve for basically whatever you were sort of being asked. But then ever since kind of the introduction of like the HP 10B in the late 80s, you know, you kind of got away from the use of those sort of mortgage tables and that sort of thing. But there's still a little bit of value in kind of understanding what they are and how kind of you get there to a certain extent and how they can be used. So specifically, what a mortgage constant is, and we can have a monthly mortgage constant or we can have an annual mortgage constant. Monthly mortgage constant is going to be a number. Think about what I'm saying, okay? The monthly mortgage constant is going to be a number that you can multiply by a loan amount to get the monthly mortgage payment. Does everybody hear what I just said? In other words, the monthly mortgage constant monthly mortgage constant times the loan amount equals the monthly payment.
Usually a fractional number, right?
What, sorry?
The constants are usually presented as
It's like a it's like a decimal, you know, with like multiple sort of, you know, points after the decimal, okay? And then the annual mortgage constant, basically the same thing, times the loan amount, is going to give you an annual payment, okay? But you can have an annual mortgage constant that is amortized or specifically is monthly compounded, is the word I'm trying to think of. Okay, so you can have, just gonna write it out. You can have an annual mortgage constant that is monthly or compounded monthly. And all that simply means is, for most loans are going to be compounded monthly. But yet you may want to know what is the total number of annual payments and the total payment amount on an annual basis. And it's not just as simple as using just an annual mortgage constant that is not monthly compounded and multiplying it by 12. You've actually got to calculate a monthly mortgage constant, multiply that by 12. Okay, and you'll sort of see what I'm saying here in a second. All right? It's not overly complicated, but just it is probably new to you from the standpoint that it's not something you have probably seen before. Okay? So, to get this mortgage constant, what you're going to do, if we're going to do the monthly mortgage constant, you're going to set your calculator up to 12 payments per year, and then you're going to put in whatever the interest rate is. So let's just say that we use 10% as an interest rate, and we use 30 years as a term, but the key here is the dollar amount that you use for the present value. You're going to just simply use $1 as the loan amount or as the present value. Now, if you think about this just logically here for a second, anything multiplied by 1 is obviously itself. But more specifically, in this particular case, multiplying the loan amount by whatever amount that we get here for our payment will allow us to calculate, in essence, our monthly payment. So in other words, the payment here is the monthly mortgage constant. Okay? So in this case, let's just put it in. So 10% interest rate, 30 years, $1 as our present value, solve for payment. Now, look at what you get. You get 0.00877571570. Okay, so how far do we have to go, in terms of carrying that out? Well, it really just sort of depends on how big your loan amount is to a certain extent and how precise we need to go. But if we simply, if you remember, the numbers I almost always use over and over again are $100,000 loan, 10% interest rate, 30 years, and the payment is $877.57. What do you see there? Okay, so in essence, I know already, if I simply multiply this number, which is our monthly mortgage constant, times a loan amount of $100,000, $877.57 in the change is going to be my monthly payment. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, but once again, this is the monthly mortgage constant. Now, what we can do to get, in essence, an annual version of this, we can simply multiply that by 12, and what you're going to get is 0.105308588, okay? And if we were to multiply that times $100,000, we would get $10,530.86, which would just simply be our total principal and interest for basically the whole year. Does that make sense? Okay? Yep.
When you have the monthly, and you did the calculation, you came out to the payment of $877.57 to go to the annual, is there a way to get back in the calculator, or do you have to start all over again?
No, all you have to do is, okay, in the sense that, you've got to have this number in your display to multiply by 12. So yes, you have to start over again.
Okay.
Okay? Now, the thing not to do, do not do the following. Okay, I'm going to put it here. Do not do this. Okay? If monthly. Okay? Do not do one payment per year, 10% interest rate, 30 payments per year, $1 present value, solve for payment. Okay, let's just see what happens when we do that.
That'll give you an annual.
Yep, but it's not going to be the right annual because this is, whoops, because this is compounded annually. So you're going to get a different number than you would down here. So instead of the 10 or 0.105308588, you're going to get 0.1006. So you're going to see you're already, for a $100,000 loan, you're going to be off by about $100.
Charge more interest.
Right. Okay. All right. Moving forward. All right. So that gets us through the first four. Okay. The next one, I'm sorry, the first three. The next one are balloon payments. Okay. Well, a balloon payment is nothing more than saying, what is the outstanding balance on a loan at some future date? And if you remember what I have said multiple times, is that many commercial loans typically have an amortization period, maybe of 15, 20, 25 years, but an actual term of how many years? 5. Meaning that they have a balloon payment that comes due and payable at the end of 5 years. So, once again, we work problems like this, but we'll go ahead and do another one just to make sure that you're comfortable. So, 12 payments per year. Give me a loan amount. Any amount.
50,000.
50,000. Okay. So $50,000 is going to be our loan amount. Give me an interest rate. 7% interest rate. Give me a term in terms. Give me an amortization period.
5.
No. Give me an amortization
30,
period.
15.
Okay. 15. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate the payment. Okay. Now, so once we've got the payment, then we're going to say, when is this loan going to be paid off earlier? What is going to be the balloon payment that is going to be due and payable at the end of, how many years, Carlos? 5. Okay. So to do that, what are we going to do?
Do 60 and put 60.
There you go. That's one way to do it. One input 60, shift, amortize, equal, 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 but the only equal that we actually care about is the last one because that's the balance. So in this case, one input 60, shift, amortize, equal, equal, equal. So the balance on that would be 38,706.40. Okay? Now, one of the things that you may or may not have picked up on about what I just said was what? That's one way to do it. So if there's one way to do it, that means there's probably another way to do it. Okay? The other way to do it would be to use what function?
Can we do 60 equals 60?
No. Well, you can do that, but that's not the way, that's not the other way that I'm thinking about.
Beginning end?
No.
Cash flow?
No. Think, think, think. We're looking for a value at some. Okay, so how you could do that is as follows. Once you have in the actual loan information and you solve for payment, then you can go in and you can simply take and put in 60 in or 5 shift in to say, okay, we want to find out what the balance is going to be at the end of 60 months, and then just simply solve for future value. Try it. Just put in 60 in or 5 shift in, solve for future value. Boom. 38,706, whoops, 40.
Oh, you mean like instead of putting one input, how
No,
many?
you can put it right after that. This is just accessing information.
Okay.
It's not replacing anything. It's just accessing the information that's already there above. Here, we are replacing the term from 15 years to 60 months. I could have written this out as 5 shift in to be into 5 years, but I just chose to do 60 in for 60 months. Okay, and then just simply solve for future value. Okay? All right, so that's a simple example of a balloon payment. All right, next one, interest-only loans. We talked about that extensively last week, but we'll go ahead and do another quick little example. So let's say that I've got a $100,000 loan that's interest-only, and it has a 12% interest rate, and it is a 30-year term, okay? All right. Real quickly, without thinking, or thinking too much, how much am I going to owe on this loan after 5 years? $100,000. Why? It's interest only. Balance does not go down, okay? How much am I going to owe on the loan at the end of 30 years? $100,000, okay? Now, what is going to be my payment in, let's say, I don't know, month 10? It's going to be the same as month 1 because it doesn't change. It's interest only, okay? Okay, what is going to be my payment? Let me just put it bluntly, okay? You're going to take what? You're going to do, okay, that's going to be your annual payment would be $12,000, but your monthly payment would be $1,000. Okay, everybody cluing in on that? Okay, so all you're doing to get that is you're taking the $100,000, multiplying it by 12% and 1 cent divided by 12, and then that's going to give you 1,000. Okay, or 12,000 a year. Okay, everybody cool with that? Okay, interest only, very straightforward. All right, moving down our list. Negative amortization. We worked on this last week as well. Okay, what is it?
Negative amortization?
Yes?
It's when the bank gives you, I guess, special financing, and you, like, say for example, you use the developer came in and you had to phase up, and for lease up, they gave him opportunity to lease up, and after you leased up, he came back around and the negative amortization made the payment, not the payment, the whole entire
Balance.
go up.
Yes, okay. So the whole idea of a high negative amortization is that your payment is not sufficient to amortize the loan. And so as a result, your balance on your loan just starts creeping up, okay? Makes sense, everybody? All right, so now, let's just give you an example. So a normal loan, once again, we'll take a $100,000 loan amount for monthly amortization, so 12 payments per year. Give me an interest rate.
11.
11? Okay, 11% interest rate. Give me a term.
30.
30. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate what is the payment, the normal payment, need to be. And so you get 952, 32. Okay? Now, let me just clue you in. Anything less than 952.32 is going to cause negative amortization to occur. Does that make sense? Because that is the minimum payment necessary in order for the loan to be paid off. Okay? Anything less than that, you're going to be paying down a portion maybe of the balance, but not enough to fully amortize it. So let's just say after we've gotten the loan, we've counted out. Here's a key thing: you have to do this step. Make sure this is clear. You have to do this step first, calculate what the normal payment is, because the calculator needs to have that information in its memory banks before then you replace that payment with whatever the new lower payment might be. So with the new lower payment, give me a payment substantially lower than that.
700.
700, okay? So if all of a sudden we put in 700, And we gotta put it in as a negative, since obviously that payment was a negative as well. Okay? So now the payment has been replaced with a negative 700 payment instead of a negative 952. Okay? So now, what I could ask you would be, all right, what is the balance on this loan at the end of year 1, end of year 2, end of month 5, end of month 30, whatever. So when do you want me to ask you for the balance? What month or year? Give me one.
30 years.
Okay, at the end of 30 years? What the heck? Okay, so see how much you actually end up still owing at the end of 30 years. So to do that, you're going to do one input what? No, 360.
360?
Yeah, because 30 years times 12 months would be 360 months. Okay? So what we're really concerned with is what is going to be that balance. I mean, ordinarily, it would be a zero balance because we would have fully paid it off, but because we've lowered the payment to 700, oh, now, is that not disturbing?
It's not realistic.
Well, no, it is.
Nobody's gonna give you a negative amortization.
Well, no, they're not gonna allow it.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not gonna allow it to last that long, because normally, it's kind of, think of it, if you're a lender, you're willing to do what in some cases is called, like what we were talking about last week, which is kind of giving them maybe a lease-up period, or in some cases you're willing, like in a downtime of the economy, you're willing to do what's called a loan workout. It's the same sort of thing. You're basically saying, give me the most money you can give me, realizing I'm not going to be able to get my full payment from you, but give me something so that at least it shows you're making a concerted effort to try to service the mortgage at least partially. Well, under this circumstance, you know, what you're basically saying happening is that difference of $250 a month is really accumulating because it's earning interest on top of interest at that 11%. So it's not just that you're deferring the payment, you're deferring all the interest over that 30 years as well, okay? So that's how you can get them with this horribly ridiculous oversized balance of $707,000, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, moving forward. Okay, so that gets us, once again, through negative amortization. Okay, the next one, points. We've talked about this as well. But we have talked about them, and this is, once again, the context we typically look at them, as they are called, come on, loan origination fees. Yes. Okay? Now, why were they ever given the name points to begin with? Okay? This is something that always kind of, you know, at first sort of baffles people. I mean, where do they come up with this terminology of points or discount points? And why they just not call them loan origination fees? Okay? Well, it pretty much came down to this. You go into a lender and they would say, okay, you're borrowing $100,000 from us, and we're going to, you know, charge you these loan origination fees, but the way that they began to sort of refer to them, once again, were as points. Okay? Well, if they said they were going to charge you 3 points, 3 points is equal to 3% of the loan amount. Well, think about how you refer, in many cases, to percentage numbers. You would say 3.0. You see? That is where the terminology sort of came from. It was just a way of expressing, basically, that you were paying 3 points or 3% on the actual loan as a fee. Okay, so 3 points or 3% means that you would be paying $3,000 up front as that loan origination fee. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes or no? Okay? I tend to not call them points. I tend to just call them loan origination fees, okay? And because the difference to me is loan origination fees can be a percentage amount, but it can also just be a dollar amount. There's nothing, set in stone that says I have to charge a percentage. I could, as a lender, just simply say, I'm going to charge you a flat fee for making your loan. You come into me, it's going to cost you $2,000 for any loan, whether it's a $1,000 loan or a $2,000 or a $200,000 loan. I'm going to charge you a flat fee. Okay. Now it may not be, appropriate. You probably should be charging it on a percentage basis in one sense, but there's nothing that says you have to. Okay. It's just the standard practice. All right. Now, one thing about the points for the loan origination fees is that impacts your overall borrowing cost. So, as the example, or the type of example that we have gone through last week, this is where we have a loan amount, let's say of $100,000, and we have maybe an interest rate of 5% for, let's say, 30 years. We calculate our monthly payment. So our monthly payment, $536.82. And we say, all right, this lender is going to charge, what the heck, 3%, we just use that. So the lender's charging 3% in points for loan origination fees.
So that makes the original loan amount in the lender's eyes $97,000, right?
Correct. That's where I'm going with that. Okay? So, what that means, as you just mentioned, is given that that $3,000 fee is going to be paid up front to the lender. In other words, once again, assume that I'm the lender for the second. Monica basically is getting this loan from me, so she is writing me a check for $3,000. I am then writing her a check for $100,000, but my real net dispersal is really only $97,000 because I've gotten the $3,000 from her.
You're paying the interest on the full amount.
But you're paying interest on the full amount. Okay? So, given that my net dispersal as the lender is $97,000, then I can simply put that in as effectively what, from my perspective, is, as the lender, is $97,000 that I am providing to you as a loan. So that means that if you hold that loan all the way for the entire 30-year term, then I can go in and just simply solve for, well, what is my effective cost of borrowing on that? $5.26 or 5.2, 6, 9, actually just keep going. Anyway, okay. So basically 5.27%. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week. What would happen if I paid off the loan early? Now, we're not talking about the prepayment penalty. We are simply talking about the impact on my yield with this loan origination fee. What would happen to this if I paid off the loan, let's say at the end of, year one? What's going to happen to this number? Is it going to stay the same? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? It's going to go up.
Oh, yeah.
The reason is, here's the way to think of it, okay? That $3,000 that you pay me up front, in essence, from the lender's perspective, that's, if the loan is paid off over the entire 30 years, think of that $3,000 being spread out over 30 years. But if I pay off the loan after only 1 year, that $3,000 is really only being spread out over 12 months. Does that make sense? So therefore, that's going to inflate my yield. Okay, so let's just see, let's prove the point. All right? Now, what I have to do, unfortunately, is we've got to go back up, put the problem in again, unless we want to just to change the present value back to the original $100,000, and you'll see why here in just a second. So what we got to do?
So we're on prepay now, we're not on points
No,
anymore?
we're not. No, we're still on points.
Oh.
Okay, we're going to get to prepay, which is the penalty piece next. Okay, so we've got this, and then we want to say after 1 year, what's going to be our balance? Okay, and we could have gotten it using future value as well. Okay, all right. So all we're doing is re-putting in the original loan information of the 100,000, 5%, 30 years, solve for payment. Okay, now 1, input, 12, shift, amortize. Okay, and I get 98,000. 524.63. Okay, so what I can do, if I want to kind of shortcut this, and there's a couple of different ways I could do this, but I could just simply put in, take that number, immediately after I get the number, change the sign, and put it in as future value. Okay, does everybody follow? Then change my term to 1 year or 12 months, either way, 1 shift in or 12 in. Then put in the 97,000 as my present value, and then solve for the interest rate. And there's a couple of ways I could have gotten to the same thing, but this is just one approach. What happened? It jumped a lot. We went up to 8.15% as my effective cost of borrowing. And the whole reason for that is what I was describing earlier. That $3,000, instead of it being amortized over 30 years, is really being amortized over 12 months, or the first year only. So therefore that causes my overall cost of borrowing, or from the lender's perspective, my lender's yield, to jump up from the base rate of 5% to 8.15. That is very significant, okay? All right, moving forward.
So the
Well, and actually, there's one more point to make about this. So, under this sort of circumstance, even without a prepayment penalty, would the lender prefer that you pay off the loan early or that you pay it off later?
in this case, early.
Definitely early, because they're going to get a bigger yield out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're getting all their money up front, in other words, with regard to making the loan, okay? And all the
And
paper.
they lose the risk.
Right.
So I'm just thinking out loud. So the conclusion for this would be if you raise, or if you have a 3-point loan origination fee, then your effective cost of borrowing goes up 2.x%.
I don't know that I would generalize it quite like that, simply because it's going to depend on what the base rate of interest is. It's going to depend on the actual term. So, you know, in terms of what, like, how many times it's going to go up, it's not going to be necessarily a fixed amount.
Right.
But you can say it's going to go up.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? Okay. Moving forward.
Could I, one quick, if you took, probably be too complicated, so I was gonna say, if you just took the 3,000 and moved it up, would there be a way that you could, you probably could, I'm just not thinking right
Okay.
now.
Just help me out. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, you could take the 3,000, instead of doing it over the 30 years, you do it over 1 year. Is there a way to do it with just factoring that and then, I don't know.
Well, okay.
And then adding
Well,
interest
okay.
rates together, would you have gotten there too?
What we could have done after this, we could have put in, or we could have solved for the balance or the future value using the, let me show you. Okay, so what we could have done alternatively, so I'll kind of segment this off, is we could have, after that step, we could have said, okay, this is going to be for 1 year, and we need to solve for future value. We would get that number, and then once we've got that number, then we would take and put in 97,000 as our present value, and then solve for the interest rate. So it's one of two ways that you could have gotten there. Okay, so let me just do that, just double check to make sure I'm not lying to you.
I just want to like.
What happened?
Since I'm not far, I have a
536, move 1, shift in, future value, okay? So when you solve for the future value here, it goes ahead and it gives you the 98,524.63. Then you simply type in the 97,000 as your present value, and then solve for the interest rate, you get the same answer, 8.14 or 8.15. Okay, so it's just two different ways that you can go about getting to the same answer. Okay, one using the amortization function, one using obviously just the future value function. Okay. Okay, moving forward. All right, so that gets us through points. Okay, now then prepayments. Let's throw the equipment in the room. Okay, so prepayments. All right, so as we have talked about already, one of the things that a lender may not want you to do is to prepay a loan, okay? Well, based on what we just talked about, you're saying, well, why wouldn't they? Well, maybe they didn't charge you very much in upfront loan origination fees, or didn't charge you anything for loan origination fees, and they're thinking, I don't have to charge them anything on the front end because I'm going to get them on the back end, in the sense of at the end of the loan, because here's what happens. You just think about what you've done in many cases on your own. If you've ever bought a house, how many years did you maybe own that house? In some cases, maybe a couple of years, 5 years, and then obviously my parents' generation, they owned their home forever in a day, 30, 40, 50 years. But, different generations tend to do different things. And so, as such, this generation that may only buy a house and own it for 2, 3, 4 years, there may be a situation of where the lender may charge them upfront, charges, and may charge them, on the back end, the prepayment penalties. But this also sort of transfers over on the commercial side, because with commercial properties, you're going to try to maybe sell that property at the peak of the market, okay? And the timing of when the peak of the market may occur may not coincide nicely with specifically what your loan terms are. So for example, what happens with a lot of commercial mortgages is they will say, we are going to have a prepayment penalty, or we're going to have a lockout provision, or we're going to have something called defeasance or yield maintenance. These are all different terms related to basically precluding you or limiting your options or making your options very expensive for actually prepaying the mortgage. Now, once again, why would they care? Okay, well, and this is part of where the new piece of this sort of comes in. A lot of lenders, whenever they make you a loan, they don't keep the loan in-house. They sell that loan off to someone else. And what they're selling off to that someone else is a series of cash flows, okay? And so if I'm selling off the loan that I have made as a lender to you as an investor, okay, I'm just selling off the loan to you, not the property, just the loan, then if somebody comes along, they all of a sudden prepay the loan, you're not going to be very happy because you've been expecting, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years worth of payments, and all of a sudden they stop paying you.
Account receivable, right?
Right, but my point is, so there's got to be some sort of protection if you want to sort of think of it in those terms for you. And so that protection becomes that prepayment penalty, that defeasance, that yield maintenance, all of that, those lockout provisions to basically protect your rights as sort of the purchaser of this mortgage. Well, now, you can't completely bar somebody from selling their property, but you can go pretty far to making it very uncomfortable and very expensive for them, okay? And that's kind of the point. Now, what we're talking about here is simply a very straightforward, fixed prepayment penalty based upon the outstanding mortgage balance of the loan, okay? So we say, okay, well, if you prepay it early, we're just going to charge you a flat 3%, 4%, 5% of whatever the outstanding mortgage balance is. As the mortgage balance goes down over time, you pay less of a penalty if you prepay. Okay? Now, what can happen is the lender structures this in such a way that whenever you buy that loan, they really are going to guarantee you those payments for the next, however many years. And what they will do is if the lender or if the borrower decides to all of a sudden prepay, they're going to force the borrower to somehow set up the equivalent of a payment scheme that will continue making payments to them for the next however many years. Okay? Yeah. Now, you're saying, why would you ever agree to something like this? Okay, as a borrower. Why? One very simple thing. You're enticed by that what thing? That low interest rate. Okay? But there are strings attached to that low interest rate is my point. Okay? Not all lenders are created equal. Okay? Every single one of you, if you were all lenders, you could all come up with a different scheme of specifically, what interest rate you charge, what sort of loan origination fee you charge, what sort of term you have, what sort of prepayment penalty you have. So all of that could be different depending on what you choose to do.
Can I have a quick?
Yes, Dr. Williams.
The room that you were using, was that reserved all day today? The one on the third floor.
No, well, it originally was us, but it's not for us at all. Now,
Okay,
we moved
so
it
it's
here.
free then,
Yeah, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you. We need to use it.
Yep.
Sorry, folks.
Okay.
I have a
So,
question.
yep.
So, as a lender, from a consumer lender perspective, if I'm a lender, I'm dealing with a lender that makes it really tough and stuff like that, obviously people talk. So, as a lender, if I'm making it almost impossible for you to cut that property inside of, say, 10, 15 years because I charge so much, doesn't that hurt my brand? Any sense?
Not necessarily, because you may be specializing in a particular property type. Most lenders tend to kind of gravitate toward, I really like making multifamily loans because they understand the multifamily product. Or I really like making industrial property loans because I really understand industrial. Or I really like making office building loans because I really, understand office. Or it's another piece of this that gets more complicated, which is, think about this as a borrower, okay? Any of you that have ever gotten loans, you go into, your lender, which may be the same lender that has your checking account, savings account, and just because, you're using that particular lender, you say, okay, I'm gonna get a car loan, I'm gonna go to that lender. They may or may not have the best rate in town, but yet you're comfortable with them because you're already using them for your home loan or for your checking account, your savings account. Well, so you get your car loan with them. Then maybe all of a sudden, it's time to get a home loan. Well, you think about them again, all right? Then it's time to maybe get, a loan on something else. You think about them again. They may not be the best game in town, with respect to the borrowing terms, but you're already comfortable with them, all your information is there. The process is probably going to be a little bit more seamless to be able to move into the product that you are trying to do, and that's on purpose. Because that allows them to kind of capture you as a customer, pure and simple. But now, if you take the time and effort to research a variety of other lenders, you're probably going to find there are other lenders that are going to be cheaper on every single one of those items, or give you better, this, that, or the other thing, but On something else, they're gonna be more expensive. Okay? In other words, you're probably never gonna find a lender that is the cheapest or the best on every single thing that you want to borrow money for. Okay? Pure and simple. Now, having just said that, there is, kind of in addition to that, or that I've had a situation of where I've used a lender, and then, all of a sudden, okay, it's time for me to go and find, another lender for another property that I want to purchase, but this particular lender is saying, yeah, we'll potentially do this loan for you, and I'm thinking, well, that may not be such a bad idea. I mean, look at the difference in terms, that sort of thing, because when I go to that new lender, I'm going to have to go through all the brain damage of providing them with all of this additional documentation about me as a borrower, my income tax returns, my, all this other, sort of detail about me that I could bypass to a certain extent with my existing lender. So I've got to sort of make that decision in my own mind, is it worth me going through the extra brain damage to get this other lender that may actually be a better deal?
They rely on people's laziness.
To a certain extent, yeah. But now, if you're doing, obviously, really, really, really large deals, that fractional difference in your borrowing cost can be huge. To the point of where that fractional difference may actually pay the salaries of multiple people just for finding you that fractional difference. Does that make sense? Okay? Because if you're doing a $100 million property, that fractional difference of 0.1 or 2% in the lending or the borrowing cost can make a huge difference in terms of what your payments are going to be and overall cost of borrowing is going to be. Okay, moving forward. All right, so continuing on real quick with the prepayment penalty. All right? So, there we go. Okay, so, give me a loan amount.
160.
Okay, 150,000, what I heard. $150,000 is going to be our loan amount. Give me an interest rate.
7.5.
7%. Okay, give me a term.
25.
25. Okay. So first of all, let's calculate our payment. Okay, payment, 1,060 point, it's like 17. Okay. Now, okay, at what point in time are we going to prepay this loan? I'm asking you to give me a month or
14th year.
The end of the 14th year?
15?
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. No, end of 14th year is fine. I thought for a second it was the 15-year loan. Okay, so end of year 14, all right? So 14 times 12. So that's going to be at the end of month 168. Okay, all right? So the first thing we're going to do, even before we know what the prepayment penalty is, we don't have to even know that to do this part of it, is just simply, we can do 168, and we could do one input 168, but we can also just do 168, 168, simply because we're just simply looking at the balance, okay? So with the equal key 3 times, let's find out what our balance is. $97,405.27. Yes? Okay. Now, what percent do we want to use as a prepayment penalty? What'd you say?
2.5.
2.5%. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to multiply this outstanding balance by. We can do it one of 2 ways. We can, if it's 2.5%, we can multiply it by the 0.025 and then add that to the balance, or shortcut it like I typically do and just simply multiply by 1.025. Okay, and then that's going to give us 840.40 as our balance with the prepayment included. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Okay, now what we have to do, this new number, the 99,840.40, has to be put in as our future value, as a negative. Okay, and then our term has to be adjusted to 168, so we can simply put in 168 as our N, or our term, and then now simply solve for what? Interest rate. Good. Those are definitely catching on. Okay, so I end up with 7.0773%. Okay, not a huge increase over the 7%, but part of the reason for that is because payment had us carry this out for 14 years. Okay, so the balance had dropped obviously from 150,000 down to 97,000, so over 3,000 roughly has been paid off. So it's not going to be a huge percentage. Okay, we good with that? Make sense? Okay, moving forward.
So that's the answer?
That's the answer. 7.077% would be the cost of the prepayment, or the effective cost of borrowing. Okay, moving forward. All right. Now this is one of those instances where this can mean two different things. For this class, CAM means constant amortization mortgage. But CAM in real estate can also mean something else. What is that? Common area maintenance, okay, which we will talk about in another class, okay?
What's the
Well, I'm sorry?
I was just asking what it stands for again, but
Okay, so constant amortization mortgage, this is where what? The dollar amount that gets paid off of your principal is the same every single month or every single payment. So for this sort of mortgage, okay, give me a dollar amount. 150,000, okay? So 150,000, and assuming this is 12 payments per year, so it's monthly, okay? Try to be consistent, okay, 12 payments per year. Okay, so 150,000, all right. So, how many years? 10. Okay, 10 years. Go with that. So this is going to be paid off over 10 years. Okay. So how much would I pay off each month? What dollar amount would I pay off each month? What are you going to do?
Isn't it gonna change from month to month?
No. Listen to my words. How much would I pay off?
Oh, principal.
Principal. Okay? There's a difference between how much is my payment going to be versus how much am I going to pay off, which is simply referring to the reduction of the principal balance. Okay? So how much, I'm sorry? Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take the 150,000 divided by 120. There's 120 months. Okay? So 150,000 divided by 120. So $1,250 per month is going to be my principal payment. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes or no? Okay? Now, my interest, give me an interest rate.
6%.
6. Okay, 6% interest rate. All right, now, so what I can do with that bare basic piece or pieces of information, I should be able to pick randomly any month and then you should be able to do a quick little calculation and figure out what the total payment is going to be for that month of principal and interest. So pick a month, any month between basically month 1 and month 120. Month 84. Okay, so if month 84, what we're going to do, we're going to multiply our principal payment of $1,250 times 84 months.
The question was what? 84 what?
Okay, the question was, what is going to be the amount of my payment for month 84?
Thank you.
Okay? So we're going to multiply the 1250 times month 84, so 84th month. We're going to get 105,000. Okay? So what does that mean? What does $105,000 represent?
84 was the principal.
Principal payment.
Okay, but no.
That's the principal payment.
That is the principal that has been paid up to that point. Yes? Okay? Not what is still owed. Is everybody with me on that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so that is how much has been paid. $150,000 has been paid off. Okay? Now, what does that mean our ending, our balance is for that month? Okay? So the balance is going to be the 150,000 minus the 105,000, or 45,000 balance at end of month 84. Okay? Everybody still with me? Okay? Now, to calculate the interest for that month, what do we have to do? Multiply the 45,000, because that's our balance, times 6% divided by 12. Oops. Okay.
That's it. I have a question. When putting this into the calculator, what's the correct way to put it into the calculator?
Okay. What I do, I just simply, in terms of the order of operations, I just take 45,000 times 0.06 divided by 12.
Gotcha.
And when I do that, I get $225, which is the interest paid in month 84. Does that make sense? Okay, so our total payment for month 84 is going to be that 225 plus 1250, which is our principal, and so our total payment is going to be what? $1,475 will be our total payment in month 84. Okay? Make sense? All right, we're almost there. Okay? Reverse mortgage. This one's quick and easy. Of course, if you think I say that, I don't mean it. All right.
Saying all the drugs.
Okay, reverse mortgage. All right, reverse mortgage is what you have probably seen on late night TV to basically take advantage of old people.
When we're
Okay, you will see these mortgages advertised, you know, and they will say, all right, are you a senior? Do you have a limited income? But do you own your house? Okay, well, here's a product for you, the reverse mortgage. All right, the way the reverse mortgage works is you have a lender that basically says, here's the value of your home, pretty much in today's dollars. And we are willing to basically give you kind of a line of credit, if you will, for that home for the next however many years that they sort of carried out. Now, these things can be structured a whole bunch of different ways. Some of these have been structured to where they're basically going to give you a payment of a fixed amount for the rest of your life, like an annuity, okay? And the idea, behind it is that, this particular, and I use the term, for taking advantage of older people, but it's sort of true. Because what is actually taking place is you may have this person, maybe their spouse has died, maybe they don't have any kids, they don't really have any heirs, but they are, on a fixed income of Social Security, whatever, okay? But yet, they have a house that maybe they bought and paid for, 20, 30 years ago, that now happens to be worth $500,000, all right? And so but they don't want to move. They don't want to sell their house, they don't want to move. So then they're saying to themselves, okay, I'm 70 whatever years old, I'm probably not going to live for more than maybe another 15, 20 years, so why not go ahead and take advantage of this product, of this reverse mortgage, get this monthly income, I get to stay in my house, and ultimately, but at the end of 15, 20 years, depending on how this thing is structured, I may be kicked out of my house, but that's another problem for another day, okay? Now, so the way that these things are typically going to be set up is you're basically, one of the reasons it's called a reverse mortgage, instead of using the present value, you're actually using the future value. Okay, now this is where it gets to sort of begin to think about what is actually happening. So first of all, let's just say that we do this on a monthly basis, so 12 payments per year. Okay, the first thing that we've got to establish is, well, what is the term going to be? What do we want the term to be?
20 years.
20 years. Okay, now the lender is not doing this out of the goodness of their heart, obviously. They expect some sort of a rate of return, just like they would with a mortgage, okay? A regular mortgage. So what interest rate do we want to give the lender? 8%. Okay? Now, at this point, then we've got to put in what, as the lender's perspective, what do we anticipate this home being worth 20 years from now? And that's where it begins to be a little bit of a gamble. So usually what the lender will sort of make the assumption is, if it's worth $500,000 today, I hope it's going to be worth $500,000 20 years from now, so they're probably just going to use whatever really the value is today. Kind of, that in of itself is part of the shifty nature of this, okay?
So they don't have to pay as much.
There's
Right.
an asset increase.
I'm sorry?
What if the value went down?
Well, then they lose. There is a risk, But, once again, every one of these is a little bit different. I'm trying to, just give you, here's an example of one type. Because it could be you have some reverse mortgage lenders, they're going to, they're going to assume a 1 or 2% increase in the value over the term. Others that are, just going to say, okay, it's at this particular fixed price of value as of today. And the reason they probably use the value as of today, number one, it limits their risk. And number two, it's an easy thing for the borrower to understand that, well, my house is worth $500,000 today, so basically I'm getting a line of credit, if you will, of $500,000. Okay?
So initially, the borrower will still have to pay back that?
No, that's what I'm getting to that point.
Okay.
So if you think that the market value will increase, it's a good idea to make a reverse mortgage.
Unless there's some provision within there that could be a penalty, or usually most lenders figure out ways to cover themselves on these things. Okay? Okay. So we put in the $500,000 as the future value. Now, in this particular circumstance, just to kind of add a little bit of flavor to the problem, let's make the assumption that we want to receive the payment when? At the beginning of the month, okay? Or beginning of the period. All right, so what does that mean we're going to have to use in the calculator?
Beginning and end.
The beginning and end month, okay? Got to have a little bit of flavor in there to keep it interesting. All right? All right, now, what do you think we're going to solve for?
Payment.
payment. Okay, then once we've got that, let's just go ahead and take it back to the regular in mode. I don't want anyone complaining and saying they didn't do that. Okay, got themselves in trouble. All right. 8%, 500,000 future value, shift, begin, end, and then solve for payment. Rounded, 843.25. Now, let's just take, just for fun, how much are they actually getting in real hard cash currency over that 20 years? Not necessarily a good deal, okay? Yeah, they're getting the money now. Yeah, they're getting a monthly payment to them, to the retiree of $843 a month for the next 20 years, but the reality of those payments, it's less than half of what they would have gotten today if they just sold the house and then potentially used that money to basically pay rental payments on an apartment or some other property for the next 20 odd years, okay? So, my personal opinion, I don't know that I've ever seen a reverse mortgage that's ever been a good investment for the homeowner. For the lenders, great deals. Once again, also why you see them on late night TV, okay? It's
Why does
because
William Brinley do this?
How popular are they?
popular enough that people obviously use them. You know, I mean, and in my opinion, you know, they really do take advantage of.
What typical interest rate is it looking for?
It totally depends on once again, the limit. No two are created equal. You know, they're probably gonna pop out something out there that is gonna not be awful, but yet it's gonna be high enough to where it gives them a decent rate of return. But, you know, even in the best circumstances, let's just put things in perspective. If they gave you a 0% interest rate, then you would only be getting back the $500,000, you know, but over 20 years, okay? All right, make sense? Okay, all right, any final questions before we do quiz 4? Right on schedule, boy, good at this one. 9:12. All right, let's do the quiz. Okay, once again, quiz, open book, open notes, open book. What? Yeah, I did, but I'll double check. And yes, I will be passing out your answer sheet here in just a second. Yep.
This is the permanent roof,
Yep.
so like the rest.
Well, as far as I know, I mean, what happened was whenever I changed the room from the first day, they didn't have approval for the whole semester for the other room, so they got permanent approval for this one.
Write a name on this?
Yep, right. Please write your name on the actual question sheet. Now I'm going to give you your answer sheet. anything? On the board, it says until 10 o'clock. It's officially 9:16, so we've got until 10:01.